Hi everyone. So just to introduce ourselves, my name's Kim Bailey and I'm a careers consultant at the University of Manchester. Emma, do you want to say a quick hello?
Hi everyone, so I'm Emma. I'm the Student Engagement and Enterprise Assistant at the Career Service. So it's a bit of a complex title, but my main role is marketing, social media and communication.
So Emma is my perfect partner in crime for today's session, with her social media knowledge from her work. And today we're both going to take you through how to use social media to boost your job search, and hopefully some really good tips and insights for you of how perhaps you're already using social media a lot already at the moment, but how you can use that in different ways to really get the most out of social media with regard to your career. Okay, so this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at the key benefits of the main social media platforms, and I'll show you which ones we're going to focus on in a minute. We'll talk you through some tips on how to cultivate a really professional presence on social media, having a think about which platforms will be best for you, what kind of strategy you want to have, and think about how you will use social media to effectively achieve your goals. We're going to also include a couple of case studies from recent graduates, Emma being one, and another graduate called Chloe, who I'm going to talk you through how Chloe used social media in her job search, and Emma's going to share a little bit from her own experience as well. So to get the most out of today's session, we recommend that you have a pen and paper ready or a Word document available that you can make some notes in. At various points throughout today's session, we're going to ask you to have a little go at a task. And this is just independent work. You don't need to necessarily share this, although you're welcome to put some ideas in the chat if you want to. But this is really just to help you focus on today's session in terms of what you want to get out of it, because there is unlimited possibilities really with social media. And it's really important that you start to think about which platforms will be best for you and what you're trying to achieve. So in terms of the platform, obviously there are so many social media platforms. This is only a small snippet, I'm sure, of all the ones that are out there. But today we're mainly going to focus on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. The Careers Service has a lot of webinars and content already available for you for LinkedIn. Obviously, this is a very important social media for job searching and job hunting. We have a whole series of webinars on LinkedIn, which we can share with you to access those sessions. But today we're going to look at social media more broadly. So we're going to focus on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. However, there might be other platforms, maybe they're on the bottom row, TikTok, Reddit, Snapchat, things that you might use on a daily basis, maybe in your personal life. But as you're listening to today's session and as we go through the other three main social medias, think carefully about whether there are any principles or tips that you can apply to these other platforms that you use on a daily basis, because there's lots of crossover between them. Okay, we're just going to start with a short poll to see what kind of platforms you're using at the moment. So there's two questions here. Which platforms do you use personally? And that might just be for fun, for leisure. And which platforms do you use professionally at the moment? So none of you are using LinkedIn for personal reasons, which is, quite good to see that you're using it for professional reasons though. So that's fantastic that you're all on LinkedIn already. See that most of you are using Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, but not using them for professional purposes yet. So hopefully today's session will give you some ideas and inspiration of how the platforms that you're already using quite intensively can be repurposed in a really effective way to help you with your job search strategy. So as I mentioned, we've got lots of resources on LinkedIn, and there's a whole section on our website where you can get started with LinkedIn. It sounds like you're all using it already, which is fantastic. As I say, we're not focusing on LinkedIn today. So if you do want to really improve your profile, learn how to connect with people professionally, then go and check out this section on the website. And Emma's going to pop the link in the chat box for you now so you can access that after today's session. Okay, so let's think about why it might be useful for you to be active on these social media channels. So employers are actively using social media as a recruitment strategy. And bear in mind that these statistics won't just be for graduate level jobs, but across recruitment in the whole graduate market. And this is really important, how high these statistics are, because employers really want to connect with you in their different spaces. So we're going to look at some strategies today of how you can do that. Put yourself ahead of the crowd when it comes to making successful job applications, and finding vacancies that are sometimes only posted on social media channels. So as we can see, employers, recruiters are using these strategies, and candidates as well. So 1 in 10 people, so this isn't just graduates, as I say, this is generally, find their jobs through social media. So there'll be lots of jobs that are advertised on a variety of platforms on social media that aren't necessarily advertised anywhere else. 79% of applicants are using social media in their job search. So today we're going to look, as I say, at some more ways that you can do that successfully. And this is a really important point that we're going to come back to a few times over the session, is that their experience as applying for a job really reflects how the company treats its people. So if you can see that a company has a fantastic social media presence, that they talk to their customers a lot, that they're open, that they post really regularly, and you can really get to know that company, then that can give you a reflection on how they might treat you as an employee. Just a few more statistics here on employers. So over 80% say that social media is either essential or fairly important to their strategy. And we've mentioned LinkedIn obviously being the main platform, but today we're looking at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And it might surprise you there how many are using those other platforms, particularly maybe changing over the years as well, with Instagram becoming much more popular. And in recent years, employers are constantly having to shift and change their recruiting strategy to make sure that they're getting to the right candidates and talking to the right candidates in a social space that they're already active in. So let's, again, just think about, put yourself in the employer's shoes. If you can understand why they want to use social media to talk to you, then this can give you some leverage in how you can approach the situation and with a bit more purpose. So let's just focus on these two to begin with. So employers are using social media because they want to engage and they want to share positive stories. So if they win an award, or if they are involved in a new sustainability project, or they have something that they really want to share with the consumer, they will use their social media to do that. So this can help you understand a bit more about what their brand represents, a bit more about what the company culture might be like, and assess whether it's a good fit for you. You can also reference any kind of nuggets of information that you find in your job applications or even at the interview. So when an employer asks you in maybe an application form for a job, why are you interested in working for our company? If you can explain to them the level of research that you've done on their social media platforms to really understand who they are, what they represent, and why that's a good fit for you, then you're automatically going above and beyond what other candidates will do, which might be a brief kind of glance at the website. So this is a really important place to be for researching to companies and figuring out whether they would be a good fit for you. Now, employers also want to attract candidates. That's why they're on social media. They want to attract candidates, it says here, that may not be on traditional job boards. So they want to be in the spaces where you are actively participating, and they also want to build relationships with you. So don't forget that the same way that we talk about with LinkedIn, connecting with people, talking to people, asking people for help, you can do that on any social media, whether that's a recruiter that maybe you met at a careers event, either online or a kind of careers fair in kind of previous years. You can connect with those employers. Maybe they've got a Twitter account. Maybe you can keep up to date with what's going on in the industry. And maybe you can reach out and ask them directly for help, get inside information about what makes a good application. And this is something that sometimes students can be quite hesitant to do. But hopefully showing you today that this is giving you some confidence, hopefully, that this is what employers want you to reach out to them about and talk to them. So they're really keen to build those relationships with potential candidates on social media. Okay, so now we've had to think about why recruiters or employers might be interested in using social media to connect with potential applicants. I want you to have a think about what your social media goal might be. Now, you might not know yet. It might be something that you want to have a think about over today's session. So just take a moment to have a think about, maybe there's one of these that you really want to focus on, or there's a couple. You might think they all sound great and you want to action them all, but we'll start thinking today about a sensible goal. So breaking it down a little bit, maybe starting small with something that you would like to start with and then building it up over time, because I'm sure you've all got a lot on right now and it's a bit overwhelming to try and do everything all at once. So maybe jot down on your piece of paper the 1 or 2 goals that you're really interested in starting with, and then maybe there's a few more that you'll want to advance in the future. So I'm just going to hand over to Emma, and Emma's going to talk you through how she's used social media in her own kind of career exploration, and which of these particular goals she focuses on at the moment. So Emma, do you want to tell us a little bit about your own journey using social media?
Great, thank you very much, Kim. So when I had a little look at the list that was on the previous page, my main goal was to use social media to research companies and understand their culture. So what I'll do is I'll just provide like a little bit about me, just so you can understand the reasoning behind me choosing that. So I am a recent graduate. I only graduated from Manchester University in December last year, so 2020, with an MA in Arts Management, Policy and Practice. So before this, I completed my undergraduate degree in Art and Design from the University of Leeds, and I finished that in 2017. I took 2 years out of education, and I took this time to really consider what I wanted to do. So lots of watching tutorials and workshops and things to help me figure out what I wanted to do. And I had a job in retail where I developed skills such as communication and teamwork and organisation. And it's really important to just emphasise it's really okay to not have an idea of maybe what you want to do and take time to make these decisions. This time for me was really important to help summarize what I want to do and think about it. So when I did start looking for vacancies, when I felt I was ready, as I said, the main one for me was to research companies and understand their culture. So I was using social media for a research purpose. So the reason behind this is that social media is a marketing channel that is often updated more frequently than a website. So you can update it more quickly, and you can log on and see current things that are happening, and it's organized in time. So that's a really good point, that you can get the top things at the beginning. So it's a great way to look for up-to-date information about a company or an organization. So when I was applying for jobs, I would look at what a company represents, which can often be found in the company's vision or their mission or aims. And I identified keywords and phrases that I could use in my applications. I would then look at their social media to see if there was anything that was happening, events or posts that reflected these values. I'd pop them down on a little piece of paper, and if I felt they was relevant to the job role that I was applying for, I would mention them in my application, and if I got through to the interview stage, and how these values correlated with me. So my experiences and how they demonstrated my knowledge of the company. So I found this through the social media channels and started to make links. And by demonstrating my knowledge of their culture and research of the company, it's a great way to show my interest in a company and also to help you stand out. So as Kim mentioned, it's a great way to make you stand out from the other applicants. So on the bottom of this, there is an example of what I mean about this. So I've included a link to the University of Manchester's page to demonstrate how the university represent their values online. So I think Kim's just popped over. So the university, this is just an example. So this is their strategic plan. So they have this little diagram, and there's the key things that they focus on. And over the next 5 years, it's their journeys and priorities for these core goals and these 4 themes inside of them. So when I was looking for jobs, this is what I'd do. So I'd research. So this is a little bit what I said about the vision, the mission and aims. So this was something that was on the website. And then I'd also look what was happening on social media. So last week, the university, you might have seen, was named the world's best university for sustainable development, which reflects their mission and values. And in the diagram that Kim just showed, it would fit into their social responsibility. So that's about like the sustainability and things like that. So across all social media, including the career service, we posted about this. So it was demonstrating something that was happening currently and also things that are happening now, which is what you want to like really focus on. And that enabled me to look at that. And the other point that I just want to make on my other goal that I use social media was to get inspiration. As I've mentioned, it was very overwhelming when I finished university. There were so many different career paths, and I was like, oh no, what do other people do? But by looking on social media, employees often share their stories, their job titles, maybe in blog posts, and you can see and use social media to get inspiration about maybe the type of roles that exist in a company and what some of the elements of the role are. Additionally, using LinkedIn is a great way to do this. So you can use social media to see the pathway of employees and understand how they got to where they are now and the type of roles that they have done. So they might have started off in like an entry-level job and now they might be doing something that you would really aspire to. So it gets inspiration about what you can do in your career journey.
Thanks, Emma, that's great. So we're going to start moving through the individual platforms now that we talked about at the start, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, just to really highlight some of the benefits. I'm sure you'll be aware of some of these already, but just to get you to start thinking about how you can use it to really support your job search and job applications. So, I mean, across all the social media, employers will advertise internships, jobs, but also events, competitions that you can enter. And there are lots of events and things going on at the moment, and we understand there's a lot of content out there. But if you do have a particular employer that you're really keen to find out more about, have a look and see if they're doing any webinars, if they're doing any Q&A sessions. Maybe sometimes they might post some videos that you can watch, just to really help you understand the company and what they're looking for. This can be a great way to apply for internships and opportunities that aren't posted anywhere else. You can use Twitter, obviously, to search by hashtags, and we're going to come on to some examples in a little while and get you to think about which hashtags you might want to use or some keywords. You can also, we talked about getting kind of the inside scoop almost. As Emma said, websites can be quite static, so they might update the website once a month or once a quarter, whereas Twitter, they're putting things on every day, multiple times a day. So they might have larger graduate recruiters that might have a graduate scheme are more likely to have a graduate specific recruitment page, or they might have a more broader careers for any employee. I'll show you some examples in a minute. It's really important for your commercial awareness as well. So getting to understand what's going on in the industry. So as Emma was saying, if she was applying for a job at the University of Manchester, she would want to know what's going on at the university. What's the strategy of the university? But more broadly, she might also want to find out what's going on in the higher education industry. So across all universities in the UK, what are the kind of hot questions that people are asking? What are the debates about? What's going on in the news? This is also really important for whichever career you're interested in. So if you were interested in the legal sector, for example, you wouldn't just want to know what was happening at that particular law firm. You'd want to know about some trends that were going on across the industry. It's also easy on Twitter to get in touch, obviously with direct messaging or tweeting someone directly to get in touch with individuals or companies, ask some questions. So quite often when I have appointments with students, they say, oh, I've got a question about this job. I don't know who to ask. I don't know how to ask, or if I can. These platforms are all available for you, including, LinkedIn, Twitter, to get in contact with recruiters and ask them the questions before you submit your application. So anything you're concerned about or something that you want to ask that's not published anywhere that would really help you make a good application, just ask the question. So really good way to connect with people and find out what's going on. You can also, we'll talk a little bit more about this later on, the kind of pros and cons of either having a Twitter that you use for everything, so you use it for all your personal activity, for fun, and you use it for your career together, Or perhaps you might want to separate them out. So it could be a really good idea to have a Twitter that's maybe not about communicating with people, as in you might not want to be messaging and putting out your own tweets and your own content, but you can just have a Twitter that you follow all the different employers, the sectors. If your goals are around getting information about finding out what's going on in the industry, about learning about company cultures, you can use it in a more passive way. So don't always feel like, oh, well, if I've got Twitter, I have to tweet 5 times a day and I have to like and I have to reshare. It very much depends on what your goal is. So if your goal is simply to find jobs, to learn more about companies, to keep on top of the news and not contribute, that's okay. You know, you can use Twitter to follow and get different job alerts that you won't find on any other websites. So it's a good way to kind of curate your content in one place and get involved in different conversations as well. If you did want to communicate with people on the converse of that, that's absolutely fantastic as well. You can use it as a place to connect with people. So I'll just show you a couple of examples here, just to life a little bit. So I mentioned that some employers will have very specific Twitter channels. So this one is for NatWest. So if anybody was interested in the finance industry as an example, they have something for their early careers. So if you're applying for an internship or a graduate program, that's what this particular Twitter is designed to do. So it has, as we see here, some stories. So it links to their website, to their blogs. It's got some video content where different people working at the business will tell you about what they do and about what's going on in the business. So, for example, you might not be applying for the finance industry, but this is just an example. So you apply this across any industry. Say that you are applying for an internship with NatWest. In your application, when they say, well, why are you interested in working for NatWest? As one of those reasons, you could say, I can see from your social media, I've been following you on Twitter for a while now, I can see that you're very active in the spaces of equality and diversity. I can see you're supporting International Women's Day. That's really important to me because. So you see already how much that could really add a lot of depth to your application that's not just kind of surface level reasons of, oh, I want to work for NatWest because you're a big bank, you operate nationally, there's lots of opportunities. These are the kind of reasons that we see all the time and that everybody is saying. So how can you differentiate your application? So that's one good way to use Twitter. Now, obviously, smaller companies are not going to have a bespoke kind of careers Twitter page, but that doesn't mean that you can't use it to find out about the company culture if they're active on Twitter. Another example here is a professional body. So professional bodies are organisations that operate across a number of different sectors, whereby they collate the news that's going on in the sector. And sometimes these can be like accrediting bodies. So if you're doing professional qualifications, you can get, for example, a RICS accredited qualification for environmental work. This is just an example to show you of how you could keep up to date with the news that's going on in that sector. And again, when you are in an interview and they say, well, why are you interested in working in surveying? You've got all the recent news that's going on in that industry. So you need to figure out what relevant social medias there are for the sectors that you're interested in. Okay, so that's just an example. We've also got all of the University of Manchester Twitter accounts as well. So you might want to follow those. That's where Emma will post all the different careers activities that are going on. We've got one specifically for postgraduate students, and we've also got the media club as well. If you're interested in the media, this is a fantastic way to find out very much about jobs and opportunities that are not necessarily advertised on traditional job platforms. Social media is a field where this is very, very active. Emma, do you have anything else to add about Twitter from your perspective?
Yeah, so I think I'd just like to emphasise what Kim said, that Twitter is a great way to keep up to date with information, and also using through hashtags, you can find relevant information, posts and jobs. And when you start following and liking these pages, they'll all start to curate your feed a little bit. So when you then log on to your profile, these will all come up on your like content rather than having to search for them. I definitely would say to use the platform to your advantage. So my way of using it might be different to Kim's, and it might be different to yours as well. But look at the sector that you're interested in, have a look at maybe some people to follow and who they follow. That's a great way to start connecting with people and get a bit of inspiration, really. But by also following companies and influencers on the right hand side on Twitter, if you're on a desktop, it also suggests people that Twitter suggests people that you might be interested in, which is a great starting point. If you did find a profile that you think, oh, I love the post on this, they might be like, oh, well, why don't you follow these? And that's just a great way to start building your profile a little bit on Twitter.
That's great. Thanks, Emma. Okay, so Instagram, moving on to Instagram, obviously there's lots of similar aspects here in terms of whether they have a graduate recruitment page. If they're a bigger company, some of them might do that. But a really important point about Instagram, especially for those of you that are using it a lot already, go back to what you're following and what you're interested in. It can be very holistic, your kind of use of social media, that if you're following things you're passionate about, that you're really interested in, opportunities might just pop up from those that you weren't anticipating or expecting, which can help you align with a company that you maybe really share some values with. We talked about hashtags. I'll give you some examples in a moment. And I think obviously one of the key benefits of Instagram is the much broader range of visual content, as opposed to some of the other social medias, is that you can get that video content with Reels now kind of coming out. Getting tips and stories and information is kind of easier than ever. There might be quotes, images, infographics. So it's a really accessible way to get in touch with companies and understand how the company really presents themselves as a brand. What's their branding like? What kind of language are they using in their stories and in their content? Does that kind of connect with you and what you're looking for from a company? So I've just popped a couple of examples on here. So this is just from scrolling through my own social media. I just saw, for example, this local cafe to me. We're looking for part-time work. Now, they might not advertise that anywhere else, because people that live locally to the park and follow the park are the people that they want to target. And if they're mostly on Instagram and Facebook, then that's where they're going to post their job advert, and they'll get plenty of applications just from that alone. So don't rely on one job vacancy site. Obviously we recommend Career Connect as a fantastic place to start when you're looking for jobs, but use social media in tandem with that if you think it would be useful for your own sector. It's an example of an internship in the second image here. So this was from an Instagram page called Dublin Jobs. So really interestingly here, think about where you're looking geographically as well. So it might be London jobs or Manchester jobs, and search your social medias by that location to see if they have any specific job boards that they're only posting on social media. And the Dogs Trust as well. So this is just an example of we're recruiting, and you see lots of these types of posts on social media. Because again, that's if you care about the cause, you're passionate about the cause, you're already following them on social media, that's the audience they want to target. So if you're, as I said about the more holistic view, if you're following and liking and in touch with organisations that you're already really passionate and have some impact for you, then this is where you might see job opportunities come up that you might never have considered before, but it will definitely align with your values and your interests. We've talked a little bit about hashtags, and we're going to come on to a quick activity on this in a moment. But this is just a couple of examples that I put in my own Instagram. So hashtag jobs in publishing. Now think about that for anything that you're interested in. Jobs in engineering, jobs in digital. Have a go at searching your social media that you have already. to see what kind of things come up with those opportunities. So this one, they were looking for a publishing assistant, which would have been an ideal for a graduate. Again, might not be publishing that elsewhere. And they even just went really broad and searched hashtag jobs, and then looking at things that were coming up in the Manchester area. This again is just an example to show you that with a quick search on my own social media, there was quickly things coming up. Now, it might not be relevant for every sector, because obviously you're all looking at slightly different things, but it's important to find the right type of social media for the sector you're interested in. So it's important to have an experiment and a play around and see kind of what comes up. Emma, anything to add about Instagram?
My main probably advice for Instagram would be to create a professional account that's separate from your personal one. It's really easy and simple to do, and it's a great way to keep your personal and private life separately. I did this. So as I previously mentioned, I did an art and design degree. So whilst I was studying and like volunteering and doing things like that, I had one that I posted, maybe exhibitions that I went to, my artwork, and I found it just a really good way to separate my art interest and then also keep on my private one, like me going out for food or things like that and catching up with like friends and family. And it's really easy to swap between profiles on the app. So it's just on the bottom right corner and you can easily flick between them too. And think of the platform as a way to advertise you. So as Kim was saying, if you do start looking for hashtags and things and following people and interacting with them, it's a great way to say, maybe if you are in the legal sector, maybe a conference that you might have watched or something like, I've just attended this or I've just read this book, and it's a great way to start publicizing and advertising you. I would advise, if you do create your own professional account, to make sure that your professional account is public, so anyone in the recruitment industry or anyone looking for you will be able to see you quite easily. The Instagram has a bio, which is on your profile, so it is 150 characters, and that's a great way to just quickly say that what your current job is, or maybe what your current role is in the university, or what you're studying, and what skills you might have, or anything that you are looking on or hoping to use a platform for, or maybe your professional passion. So if you've got a real passion in animal welfare, if someone then was in that industry, they would really see that that's something that you're interested in as well. And I would emphasize that Instagram, is a real image-based platform. So out of all of the social medias, that's very image orientated. So maybe focus on posting some images of career-related photos. So as I just mentioned, maybe a conference that you've been to, a workshop, or perhaps a quote that's just inspiring you to finish your dissertation, or maybe keep revising for your exams and ways to look after your well-being. And that's great to see that in the current recruitment and any workplace, everyone's quite focused on well-being, and you have to have that work-life balance. So that's something that's great to see as well on Instagram.
Great tips. Thank you so much, Emma. Okay, so we're just going to move on to the second task now, and just to get you to note down task number 2 on your piece of paper or your Word document that you might have open, some hashtags and keywords that you want to try on Twitter and Instagram. So just some ideas for you here, and you could start quite broad, quite big, hashtag graduate job, but then also think maybe about the sector. So hashtag charity job, replace charity with whatever you're interested in, just see what kind of things come up. Careers in is also a good hashtag, again, replacing the engineering with whatever it is that you're interested in. And I mentioned with the kind of Dublin jobs one, try having a look by location as well. So wherever you're looking for an internship or a part-time job or a graduate job, try searching that as well, because in different areas across the UK or even internationally, there will be specific Twitter and Instagram profiles that are just focused on curating job opportunities in a particular location. Okay, so we'll just move on. So the last one we're going to look at is Facebook, and then we're going to do some frequently asked questions and some more tips for you. So Facebook, again, a lot of repetition from what we've already said around whether they've got specific content, but maybe longer posts on Facebook, sometimes video content, and groups is a key differential here that isn't a feature of Twitter or Instagram in the same way. So joining groups dedicated to specific careers areas can be a really fantastic way to use Facebook. It's perhaps less helpful for contacting individuals because recruiters are much more likely to have a professional profile on one of the other platforms. But groups is probably the best place to go when we're looking at Facebook. So again, I'm just going to take you to Facebook and we'll have a look at a couple of examples. So very similarly to the NatWest one that we looked at on Twitter, the Facebook page here for Aldi Careers UK as an example. So, you know, they've got direct links to applications, they've got images, they've got videos, again, very popular way to really introduce you to what they do and what they're interested in. So this is just an example of all the different things that you could find on Facebook that aren't necessarily available on other platforms. So that's a page. As to show you an example of a group, this is one called People in TV. So I mentioned Media Club earlier on for the Twitter. We've got lots of students interested in media at Manchester, and one of the best places you can be is on different Facebook groups that advertise opportunities for running opportunities. So that would be like going down on the set and maybe going down to Media City and helping out for a couple of hours or a couple of days. And this is a group where you can access those types of opportunities. Again, they're not necessarily advertised anywhere else. So you need to have a look about the groups in your industry and see what might be important for your career exploration and finding opportunities. We've also got a couple of groups that the Careers Service runs as well. So for those of you that may be in your first year or your second year of an undergraduate course, you might be interested in the internships group. So in here we will post different sessions that we're running, but you can see Anna's also posted here about the work experience bursary, which is where you can get some funding to help support any internships or work experience that you're doing that are unpaid or low paid. And then we also will advertise any internships that we know about, competitions, and there'll be all the detail, link you through to the details on Career Connect. So this is one place that you might want to focus on getting internships from. And the other one that we run for any of you that are in your final year and thinking about staying in Manchester next year is the Manchester Graduate Talent Group. So again, this will take you through some different sessions that we're running, but then we also share any specific opportunities that are for final years, either final years of an undergraduate course, or if you're a postgraduate and looking for a graduate role, these are all open to you as well. So these are MGT, Manchester Graduate Talent. So that's what that stands for. And these are different internships that will tell you a little bit about the job, and then you can have a look at a direct link on Career Connect to find out more about that vacancy. So those are a couple of ones that you might want to consider joining. Emma's popped the links in the chat for you there to have a look at. So that's the main way that Facebook can really be used as a differential. Emma, have you got any other tips from your perspective for Facebook?
Yeah, so groups is a great way, I would say, on Facebook, and it's definitely, as Kim showed in some of the examples, it's a great way to get involved in your sector. But by also following or liking companies, you can show an interest in joining the team. You can engage in content, maybe post that they're posting, and you can show a level of commitment. And our bonus is if they do post any vacancies, they will come straight up in your news feed. So when you are just scrolling, they could come up. But I would say with Facebook specifically, be really conscious of your privacy settings if you're using the same profile to look for jobs and also for personal use. If you needed any tips, you can quite simply Google them, but I would say really look at your privacy settings, if you are using the same profile to look for vacancies.
That's great, Emma, thank you. Okay, so we've got one more profile here from Chloe, who I mentioned at the start, is another intern that works for the Careers Service at the moment. So Chloe's given me some notes to share you her story. So she graduated from the University of Manchester in 2019 with a biomedical sciences degree, and she also spent a year out, similar to Emma, after graduation in retail, as she wasn't sure what she wanted to do. And social media was really useful in her job search, as it was a tool that she was using all the time in her personal life. So she'd often come across opportunities once she knew where to look. And Chloe actually found her student advisor position advertised on the Manchester Graduate Talent Facebook group. And that was a tool she used daily when searching for jobs and keeping up to date with the vacancies. And just Chloe said to bear in mind that you can use the career service for 2 years after you graduate. So obviously Emma and Chloe are both applying for things and using the Manchester Graduate Talent pages, using the career service after graduation. And her local area geographically also had a dedicated Facebook group where they advertised local jobs from a wide range of different companies and positions. She also used Twitter, so using that to focus on her particular interests. With the biomedical sciences background, she followed companies like the NHS graduate scheme, because they would tweet updates about when the scheme was opening and closing, and retweet opportunities from other relevant organisations. Chloe also used YouTube a lot for researching application tips, preparing for interviews. There really are so many videos out there. We've put a link to the YouTube channel that the Career Service has, because all the sessions that we've run throughout the year are posted on there, so you can go back and watch them. Whatever stage of the application process you're at, there will be a video to support you with how to prepare for interviews, how to make a really good application. So if you like watching things rather than reading things, then YouTube is obviously a fantastic social media for you to access. Okay, so we're going to run quickly through some pros and cons and some frequently asked questions. If you have any other questions, this is a really good time to pop them in the chat. So one of the questions that Emma's touched upon a little bit there is, should I have a separate profile for personal and professional use? Now, this very much depends on the platform. It depends on what you're applying for and what your goal is with social media. So if you wanted to be, for example, a writer, or you wanted to be a journalist, then it might be that you would have, while you're getting started, a profile that covered both aspects of those things. So personal things that you're really interested in, maybe you have a little blog that you talk about things, local issues that are going on, but you also, tweet about what's going on in your life, and that's acceptable to have them in one place if that makes it an efficient use of time for you. But you might find it better to separate the two aspects, as Emma was saying, with maybe Instagram having a separate profiles, or Facebook. Think about what you use that profile for and what you would want that employer to see about you. So if you're using it for professional use, just be very careful that everything that you put across in that platform, you'd be happy for a recruiter to know and see and read about you. So it's very much a personal choice, but privacy settings are really important to have a look at, and think about your authentic voice and what you want to put across to the employer. Should you use all social media platforms or focus on one? Now, you might be tempted after today, right, I'm going to set up a professional platform on every single professional profile on every single platform. That might be very time consuming to keep up to date with. So have a think about which one might be useful for you. Do some research, follow up on some of the tasks that we've talked about today. A third question that people sometimes ask is, will employers look at my social media when making an application? Now, the most recent kind of wide stats on this come from YouGov a couple of years ago in 2017, that said that 36% of UK employers rejected candidates based on their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter or LinkedIn profiles. However, with the growing importance of equality, diversity and inclusion, with fair and equitable recruitment processes, less employers will be comfortable looking at people's social medias in advance of looking at their application or inviting them to interview. There's lots of examples across the sector now where applications are being reviewed blind, which means that names are taken off covering letters. In some instances, you might do a video interview. I've heard of companies that now are just asking their employees their recruiters to listen to the audio rather than look at the person, because that could make a judgment, and an unconscious bias could come into play there. So employers are less they're more hesitant to be using social media and looking at you, but you will almost need to just pretend that they will look at everything, and that way you'll make sure that it's nice and accessible, that you're not putting anything out there that could be particularly controversial or problematic for that employer. So it's better to be safe than sorry. There are no guarantees that an employer will or won't look at your social media. So as we've talked about, make sure you know what's visible to everyone with your privacy settings. And if you don't want to risk employers knowing a lot more about your personal life, then keep them separate. How actively should you engage on the platforms? So that really depends on your goal. Coming back to what we talked about at the start, will creating content, commenting on other people's posts, sharing things, retweeting things, will that help you achieve your goal? Will starting a blog site, for example, give you an opportunity to share your own story, to give space to post longer comments on things you're passionate about and showcase your interests and values to employers? Potentially, that's a really fantastic way of using social media. And maybe creating your own TikTok or your own YouTube, or getting involved in projects like TEDx, where you can really speak passionately about projects that you're interested in. Even if that's not directly connected to the job that you're applying for, it can show that you are excellent at communicating with a wide audience, that you can, start a conversation. So there is potential in having profiles that focus on content creation, but you need to think carefully about whether that will help you with your particular goal. And that, of course, depends on the industry that you're looking at. So should you use other types of social media, some of the ones that we mentioned at the start, like TikTok, Reddit? Again, you will know best from using those social medias which ones might be helpful to you. So TikTok is fantastic for really short videos. You could get lots of quick tips on there that are kind of easy to digest, kind of short form videos. So maybe just have a little experiment on those platforms that you're using. Have a little play around tonight, keywords, see kind of what sorts of things are coming up. But just be really careful about whether the information is objective and impartial, and whether it's accurate as well, because you need to be quite critical when you might be watching kind of videos that aren't from a reputable resource. If it's just an individual telling you about their own experiences in the job market, that can give you one perspective, but it can't necessarily be taken as the whole truth. So make sure that you're using this kind of social media strategy along with impartial and objective advice from places like the Careers Service, to make sure that you're getting that really accurate information about the labour market, for example. Just quick check on the time, Emma. If we just spend a couple of minutes going through tips for your professional presence. So just a couple of words on each of these would be fantastic, Emma, in terms of how the students can really make sure that they benefit from using all these platforms.
Thanks, Kim. So there is just some little tips that I think me and Kim both think are really important when using social media. So the first one is be up to date. So make sure that your social media is up to date and maybe doesn't look like you've not engaged in months. And it's also best to have your current job role maybe, or your degree programme. Be authentic. So that's a real key one. So be genuine, represent the real you and your interests, and showcase maybe your top achievements, and be honest. Make sure you have like the evidence to back up anything that you do say that you do have. Be accessible and approachable. So if anyone wants to message you, check your messages regularly and update your contact details to like the correct phone numbers and things like that. Be strategic. So as Kim said, think about what you're posting and what employers may also say about what you're posting, and be engaged. So if you want to engage with followers, companies, like and repost things, and use that to like maintain your followers. So also be realistic. A real key one that I'd like to emphasize is be realistic. So it's, as Kim said, it might be great for you to have all these platforms and you might want to go away now and make them all, but that isn't really realistic. It's hard to do this whilst where you're working, you might have a part-time job and studying, and also a personal life. You need to just select the most appropriate social media channels that represent maybe the sector and focus on them, rather than trying to have just 7 or 8 profiles and everything. Maybe just a couple might be best, and be accurate. So in my current job role, this is something that I've learned a lot about in the past 5 months of doing this role, is double check things, spelling, grammar and punctuation before posting. It's best to always proofread things to avoid anything a bit little errors, as employees will notice these mistakes, and you don't want to have that to be detrimental to your application. There is lots of equality, diversity and things and inclusion that means that it shouldn't, but just in case, try and double check everything, and be conscious that on certain platforms such as Instagram you can't amend. You'd have to delete it on your story and then repost, so that's just something that you've got to be conscious about.
Thanks very much, Emma. So the final task, and then we're going to do one more poll just to revisit what we started at the beginning. I want you to start thinking about what your goals will be based on what you have heard today. We recommend that you make a SMART goal. So there's some examples here of goals that are specific. So maybe they're focusing on one platform. So I want to create a Twitter account. It's time bound, so you want to do it this week. You want to follow 25 companies because that's realistic, maybe, in terms of, and achievable in terms of what you can do this week. The second one here, I want to spend 2 hours searching for relevant Facebook pages and join at least one group. So they're setting a particular time frame that they're going to put aside to work on this week. And this is the really important point of today's session, really, because you could go away and think, oh yeah, it was all interesting, but now you need to take some action. So thinking about what you're going to do. So just take a moment to have a think. Maybe, do you want to start a new profile? Do you want to spend a bit of time doing some research into which platform might be best for you? Are you applying for a graduate job right now that you think, actually, I'm going to go away and spend some time learning more about that company culture and putting that evidence into my application? Oh, I can just see a question in the chat as well. Someone's asked, in terms of applying for part-time jobs, do I think it's necessary to have a professional social media account in that case? I wouldn't say so, no, because as I showed with that example of the Instagram, you're kind of following things that are in your area, and part-time jobs will pop up. It's very unlikely that that employer is going to look you up on social media. But again, you might want to just check your privacy settings. Is your Instagram public or private? If it's public, are you happy with employers seeing what's on there? Same with your Facebook, who can see the content there. So probably not necessary to have a professional account, but it very much depends on the part-time job. If it's a part-time job in a cafe, but they're also looking for somebody to do a bit of social media work, then maybe that might be useful for you to show them a little bit about how you work on social media, what your skills are. So something to have a think about there. Just a few other things that you might want to have a watch of, but there are a few other webinars on our YouTube channel that are kind of very related to the topic we've been talking about today. If you do have a goal around engaging and sharing content and talking to people on social media, then the session around selling yourself and creating a personal brand would be really fantastic. There are lots of jobs, as we've mentioned multiple times today, that are not advertised on traditional job boards and are advertised either through word of mouth, through networking, through social media. And if you're looking for those kind of hidden jobs, that's a massive portion of the market. There's some fantastic sessions on the hidden job market. And we've also got another session on the importance of your online presence. Later this week, my colleagues are running a session on digital communication skills and online etiquette. So this is about how to communicate. So if you've thought some of the things were useful and interesting today about, why don't you reach out to employers, why don't you talk to them, ask them questions, if you want more guidance on how to write those professional communications and how to write social media posts, how to write emails to employers, then this is a really good session. And just to kind of remind you that the Career Service is here to support all students We completely understand that not every student will have the same experience of accessing career support or recruitment processes. So we really want to support every student, and employers too are really keen to work with us on this agenda and to make sure that everybody gets the support that they need. There is a dedicated section on our website for opportunities for students from underrepresented groups and support. So do check that out in the equality section on the website if that's of interest to you. Thank you very much for joining today, and I'm glad you found it useful.